Leah stood in front of the mirror, applying the final touch of lip gloss to her already flawless makeup. Her phone buzzed with another Instagram notification, a new comment under her latest post. Queen energy. She smiled, proud of the illusion she had built. The girl with the perfect life, the rich friends, the expensive clothes. But beneath the shimmer of highlighters and filters was a truth she buried so deep, even she barely acknowledged it anymore. Down the hallway of her aunt's pristine house, far away from the school hallways filled with whispers and status games, lived a woman named Carla. Quiet, tired, forgotten. Her mother. Carla was the reason Leah even got into Brookstone High, a school for the elite, with its marble floors and designer uniform code. But Leah didn't get in because of legacy or wealth. She got in because Carla scrubbed those marble floors, cleaned those bathrooms, and quietly slipped half her monthly paycheck into Leah's tuition account. Leah knew that, but she never said a word. Carla had raised Leah alone since Leah's father vanished when she was 6. No calls, no visits, no child support, just Carla and Leah against the world. At least, that's how it used to be. But something changed when Leah hit 16. At Brookstone, she met Danielle. Tall, sharp, dressed in Chanel earrings before most kids could spell the word. Danielle's approval was a golden ticket to social survival. Her inner circle lived a life Leah only saw in magazines. And Leah, desperate to belong, invented a new story. She said her mother had passed away. Cancer. Tragic but elegant. Now she lived with her successful aunt, who worked in tech. It started as a lie to impress Danielle. But the lie stuck. It spread like perfume in the air, sweet and believable. No one questioned it. Leah knew how to sell a story. At home, Carla noticed Leah growing distant. The hugs stopped. The conversations turned cold. Leah began spending more nights at her aunt's. Carla would call to check in, only to be met with, "I'm busy," or worse, silence. But she never stopped loving her. Every morning, she packed food in a brown paper bag, just in case Leah dropped by. She ironed Leah's uniform even when it remained untouched. On Leah's birthday, she left a tiny velvet box at the aunt's house, a locket with Leah's baby photo inside. Leah never opened it. Leah wasn't cruel by nature, but popularity had a price. And that price was pretending Carla didn't exist. Then came the day everything cracked. It was a Wednesday. Rainy. Leah had forgotten her science project, a big one, worth 30% of her grade. In a panic, she called her aunt. No answer. As she sat frozen in class, convinced she'd fail, the door opened. "Excuse me," said a voice. Heads turned. Carla stood there, soaked from the rain, clutching a cardboard model wrapped in a plastic bag. Her janitor badge still clipped to her sweater. Leah froze. Someone whispered, "Who's that?" Another girl said, "OMG, that's the cleaning lady." Danielle turned to Leah, eyes wide. "Wait, is that your mom?" Time stopped. Leah stood up, snatched the project without looking at her mother, and muttered through clenched teeth, "Thanks." Carla smiled softly, hopeful. "I wanted to make sure." Leah cut her off. "You can go now." The class laughed awkwardly. The teacher didn't know what to say. Carla nodded and left, the door clicking shut behind her. That night, Leah stormed into Carla's tiny apartment, face twisted in fury. "Why would you come to my school like that? In your disgusting uniform? Do you know how embarrassing that was? You ruined everything." Carla stood still, her hands trembling, her eyes glistening with something unspoken. "I only wanted to help, sweetheart. I didn't want you to fail." "I wish you weren't my mother," Leah hissed. "You're pathetic. I don't want anything to do with you anymore." The words hung in the air like smoke. Carla didn't yell, she didn't cry. She simply said, "I know it's hard, but one day you'll understand," and closed the door quietly behind her. Leah left that night and didn't come back. She blocked Carla's number, moved in permanently with her aunt, and never looked back. She buried her past like a body in the woods. But love, real love, doesn't die that easily. And neither does truth. Because what Leah didn't know was that her mother was already sick, very sick, and every choice Leah made to distance herself was about to come crashing back in ways she never expected. For months after that rainy Wednesday, Leah didn't speak to her mother. Not a call, not a message, nothing. She had erased Carla from her life like smudged eyeliner, fast, clean, final. From the outside, Leah was thriving. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of laughter, parties, brunches, designer bags, mostly borrowed, and poolside selfies at Danielle's family estate. Her captions spoke of blessings and living your truth, but none of it was real. Leah's truth was buried in a small 2-room apartment on the edge of town, where Carla still lived, still ironed her daughter's uniforms, still packed snacks in brown paper bags she left untouched by the front door, hoping that maybe, just maybe, Leah would come back. She never did. Danielle became Leah's new obsession. Everything Leah wore, said, or posted had to impress her. She started talking differently, more polished, more fake. She laughed at jokes she didn't find funny, gossiped about people she barely knew, and scrolled past photos of her mother cleaning toilets at Brookstone like they were strangers. But something inside her began to twist. At night, in the silence of her aunt's house, Leah would sometimes dream about the scent of her mother's cooking. Spicy jollof rice with too much pepper, the way Carla always made it just for her. Or the way Carla used to hum softly while brushing Leah's hair before school, singing old Nigerian lullabies she barely remembered. Those memories came like ghosts, and then disappeared by morning. At school, Leah's grades started to slip. She barely noticed. All that mattered now was the influencer internship Danielle had told her about, a prestigious summer program run by one of the biggest lifestyle brands in the country. Just getting in meant sponsorship deals, travel, money, fame. It was Leah's dream ticket out of poverty, the poverty she'd pretended didn't exist. "You have to apply," Danielle insisted. "You've got the look, you've got the brand, you just need the story." "I'll figure something out," Leah said. Danielle tilted her head. "Didn't you say your mom passed away from cancer?" Leah nodded slowly. "Perfect. That's your angle. Overcoming grief, rising above tragedy. Brands eat that stuff up." Leah smiled. "Right, of course." Back at her aunt's house that night, Leah opened her laptop and started typing. She crafted a gripping application essay filled with emotional language about loss, strength, and a mother she never really described, because truthfully, she didn't know how to. She submitted the application 2 days later. And waited. In the meantime, Carla's world was growing smaller. At the hospital, the nurses were gentle but firm. "You're missing too many chemo sessions, Carla. You need to come consistently." Carla sighed weakly. "I can't afford to miss work. My daughter's schooling depends on it." "She's not even here," one nurse muttered under her breath. Carla heard her. She said nothing. She'd been hiding the diagnosis for over a year now. Stage 4 cervical cancer. It had started quietly, with small pains she ignored. Then came the fatigue, the weight loss, the nights of sweating through her sheets. But she never told Leah. She didn't want to be a burden. Carla used what little money she had for Leah's future, paying school fees from a distance, secretly wiring money to Leah's aunt so Leah would never know. Every sacrifice Carla made was for the child who now wouldn't look her in the eye. Her own daughter had disowned her, but still, she loved her. Even when the pain stole her strength, even when loneliness haunted her every night, Carla held on to one hope. That one day, Leah would remember. The real Leah, not the polished, curated girl on Instagram, but the little girl who once danced barefoot in the kitchen, singing off-key and calling Carla her best friend. Maybe that Leah still existed. Maybe she would come back before it was too late. Then the acceptance letter arrived. Leah opened her email during lunch at school, her eyes widening as she read the words. "Congratulations! You've been selected." She screamed. Danielle screamed. Other students clapped. That night, Leah celebrated with friends. They popped non-alcoholic champagne, took boomerangs, and toasted to making it big. But 2 days later, everything changed. A polite but concerned email landed in Leah's inbox. Subject: background verification. Urgent follow-up needed. The lifestyle brand's team had done a routine background check. They couldn't verify some of the medical details Leah mentioned about her late mother. And even more oddly, they had found recent unpaid medical bills under her mother's name. Bills that suggested her mother was very much alive. Confused, Leah panicked. She called her aunt. Her aunt hesitated, then said, "Leah, your mother, she's sick." "Sick?" "She didn't want you to know, but it's bad. It's cancer." Leah's world stopped. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Her mother, the woman she disowned, erased, lied about, was dying? And she had no idea. Her chest tightened. Her mouth went dry. Suddenly, all the photos, the likes, the fake stories, none of it mattered. She had to find Carla. She had to see her, because now it might be the last chance she'd ever get. Leah didn't even stop to close her laptop. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and keys. Her aunt stood in the hallway, stunned by the urgency in Leah's eyes. "Where is she?" Leah asked, her voice trembling. "Where is my mom right now?" The woman hesitated. "Leah, she didn't want me to—" "Please, I need to see her, right now." Reluctantly, her aunt gave her the hospital name. The cab ride felt endless. Each second stretched like punishment, every streetlight a reminder of how long she had been gone. Leah stared out the window, haunted by the sound of her mother's voice the night she last saw her. "One day, you'll understand." She was starting to understand now. When she finally arrived, the hospital smelled like disinfectant and quiet sorrow. The walls were dull, the lighting harsh. The receptionist looked up with tired eyes. "I'm looking for Carla Okoye," Leah said. "She's my mother." The woman typed on her keyboard, then frowned. "She's in the palliative wing, room 216, down the hall, second left." Palliative? The word hit Leah like a slap. As she walked the corridor, she felt like a stranger entering her own history. The daughter who had walked away from love, and now feared it might be too late to walk back. Room 216. Leah paused at the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. Then, with a breath, she pushed it open. The room was dimly lit. The bed by the window was small, clinical, and heartbreakingly still. And in it, hooked to an IV, lay Carla. Her mother looked smaller somehow, paler, fragile in a way Leah had never imagined. But her face was still familiar. The same softness, the same curve in her lips, the same warmth in the cheekbones she saw in the mirror every morning. And then, Carla opened her eyes. Leah froze. Carla stared for a moment, disoriented. Then recognition dawned. "Leah," she whispered. Leah burst into tears. "Mama!" Carla tried to sit up, but her strength failed. Leah rushed forward and grabbed her hand. Bony, cold, but still alive. "You came," Carla whispered. "I should have come sooner," Leah choked. I was so stupid." Carla smiled faintly, tears forming. "You were just hurt. I never blamed you." "But I blamed you. I was ashamed. I told people you were dead." Leah's voice cracked. "And the whole time, you were here, alone, fighting this." Carla gave a weak laugh. "Mothers, we don't stop loving, even when our children push us away." Leah collapsed into the chair beside her, sobbing into her mother's hands. She felt like a child again, not the girl with the Instagram-perfect life, but the girl who used to cling to her mother's arm during thunderstorms. "I got into the internship," she said. "I wrote about you, about losing you, but you weren't gone. And now I don't even care about any of that." Carla looked at her gently. "Don't throw your future away, Leah. Use it. Make it worth something." Leah shook her head. "Not without you." For the next hour, they sat in silence. Sometimes speaking, mostly just existing together, as if trying to make up for all the lost years in a single evening. That night, Leah didn't go back to her aunt's. She stayed by Carla's side. She helped adjust her pillows, held the cup while Carla sipped water, watched her sleep. The next morning, Leah spoke to the doctor. "She's in late-stage cancer," he said. "We've done all we can. She's no longer responding to treatment." Leah's heart dropped. "How long?" The doctor sighed. "Weeks, maybe less." Leah walked out in a daze. But as she sat in the hospital courtyard, watching the sunrise peek over the city skyline, something inside her shifted. This couldn't be the end. She refused to let her mother leave the world quietly, forgotten, discarded, like she had lived the past few years. She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. Her fingers hovered for a moment. Then she began typing. This isn't my usual post, but it's the most important thing I've ever written. For years, I lied about my life. I told the world my mother was dead because I was ashamed of being poor, of not fitting in. I disowned her to survive socially. But she never disowned me. Even while battling stage 4 cancer, she kept paying my tuition, loving me from a distance, waiting for the day I'd come back. That day is today, and I'm never leaving her side again. She attached a photo, her hand holding Carla's. Then she clicked post. Within an hour, the post went viral. Thousands of comments poured in. Messages of support, stories from other children who had made mistakes, messages from strangers saying, "You're not alone." But more than anything, it lit something inside Leah. She launched a GoFundMe titled, "Help Me Give My Mom a Fighting Chance." She poured her heart into the campaign, sharing everything she had hidden for years. Her guilt, her love, her regrets. And people responded. By midnight, the page had raised $18,000. But even as hope flickered, Leah knew the truth. Money couldn't undo time. That night, she crawled into Carla's hospital bed, curled up beside her mother like she used to as a child, and whispered, "I don't deserve your love, but I'll earn it, I promise." Carla opened her eyes briefly, kissed Leah's forehead, and whispered back, "You already have." Leah didn't go back to school the next day, or the day after that. She stayed by Carla's side at the hospital. Each hour spent like borrowed time she refused to waste. She read to her, rubbed lotion into her mother's dry hands, held her during painful coughs. And every night before Carla drifted to sleep, Leah whispered softly, "I'm here, Mama. I'm not leaving you again." At first, Carla protested. "Don't ruin your life for me," she'd say, her voice weak but firm. "Go live your dream." But Leah had finally realized something. She had never had a dream. She had only chased what others praised. The dream had always been Carla, her safety, her sacrifice, her love. "I'm not ruining my life," Leah would reply gently. "I'm rebuilding it." Outside the hospital walls, Leah's GoFundMe campaign kept gaining traction. Every time she refreshed the page, more donations poured in. $10, $50, $100. Messages from strangers who had lost their own mothers, or been abandoned by their children, or simply wanted to help. The total crossed $30,000 in 4 days. She sat with Carla, reading every name aloud. "Angela from Minnesota says you're a hero. Mike from Nigeria said your story reminds him of his mother. Look, Mama. Look how much love there is for you." Carla smiled but said nothing. Her body was growing weaker. The doctors warned Leah that her mother's organs were beginning to shut down. The cancer had spread faster than anyone expected. But Leah refused to give up. She began organizing a home hospice setup. "She won't die in this hospital," she told the staff. "She'll die at home, where there's sunlight, music, her own bed." The hospital hesitated at first, but the GoFundMe covered everything: hospital bed, oxygen tanks, nursing visits. Within a week, Carla was back in her old apartment, the one she had kept clean for Leah, even when Leah never came. Leah transformed the place. She painted the peeling walls a soft cream, hung new curtains, lit candles with soothing scents, and on the bedroom wall, she taped up dozens of letters, printed out from strangers who had written to say how Carla's story changed their lives. Carla's bed was moved to face the window, where sunlight streamed in every morning. "You remember this room?" Carla asked one day, her voice faint. Leah nodded. "This is where you used to sing to me. 'Sleep, baby, sleep, your mama's near.'" Carla smiled. "You remember that?" "I remember everything now," Leah whispered, holding back tears. Each day became a ritual. Leah would feed her, clean her, read to her. Some nights, Carla was too tired to even speak. She just watched Leah with tired, proud eyes, as if memorizing her daughter's face. On the 5th night home, Carla motioned to a small wooden box on her nightstand. "Open it," she whispered. Leah did. Inside was a locket, the same one Carla had left on her birthday years ago. Inside the locket was a tiny baby photo of Leah, smiling with 2 tiny teeth. Leah's heart cracked. "You kept it?" "I never stopped loving you," Carla said softly. "Not even for a second." Leah hugged her so tightly the nurses had to gently intervene. That night, Leah opened her laptop. She typed a long post titled, "The Truth About My Mother," and posted it on her blog, her Instagram, her Twitter, everywhere. It was raw, real. She didn't hide anything. Say, "Oh, I disowned my mother to impress people who don't even remember my name today. I erased her so I could fit in. But even as I rejected her, she paid my tuition, skipped chemo for me, and kept my baby picture in a box like treasure. She worked as a janitor in my school, so I could sit in classrooms with people who looked down on her, but she never once looked down on me." The post exploded. Overnight, her inbox was flooded with offers. Magazines wanted to publish her story. A documentary team reached out. Even the lifestyle brand she had originally applied to sent her a message. "We read your post. You didn't lose the internship, Leah. You created something more powerful than any campaign. You created truth. When you're ready, we'd love to work with you." But none of that mattered now. Leah stayed with her mother, even as Carla's breathing grew shallow, even as her eyes fluttered and stayed closed for longer periods, even when the hospice nurse gently told her, "It could be any time now." Leah crawled into the hospital bed beside her again, wrapping her arms around the woman who had given her everything and asked for nothing. That night, she held Carla close and whispered stories from their past. The time they made birthday cake with no eggs, the time they danced barefoot in the rain, the way Carla used to leave lunch notes in her school bag. And then she whispered, "Mama, you can go now. I'll be okay. You've done more than enough. You were always more than enough." Carla didn't respond with words, but a soft tear slid down her cheek. And in the morning, when the nurse came in, Carla was gone. Peaceful, still, loved. The funeral was small. Just a handful of nurses, Leah's aunt, and 3 older women from Carla's church, who remembered the way she used to hum gospel songs while cleaning the sanctuary. Leah stood at the front of the church in a simple black dress. No designer heels. No heavy makeup. Just a daughter stripped down to her truest self. Raw, grieving, and humbled. A single photo sat on the easel beside the casket. Carla, in her janitor uniform, holding a mop in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other, smiling so brightly it almost hurt. The minister said kind words, but it was Leah who truly honored her mother. She stepped up to the podium, holding a crumpled piece of paper she didn't end up reading from. I used to be ashamed of who I came from," she said, voice trembling. "I wanted to be someone else, someone wealthier, someone more glamorous. I lied about my mother to fit in. I disowned her to gain the approval of people who barely knew me." She paused, eyes filling. "But the truth is, I come from the strongest woman I've ever known. A woman who sacrificed her life for mine, who cleaned bathrooms at my school while I told people she was dead. And even then, she kept loving me, quietly, fiercely, without conditions." She looked up, her eyes locking on the crowd. "My mother died from cancer, but before she did, she reminded me what real love looks like. It's not flashy, it's not loud, it's patient, it's faithful, and it doesn't give up even when you do." Silence fell over the church, and then applause. Not the loud clapping kind, but the gentle, tearful nods of people who understood, who had loved and lost, who had made mistakes and found grace anyway. After the funeral, Leah returned home, not to her aunt's house, but to Carla's apartment. She stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by the scent of lavender candles and faint hospital antiseptic, and felt the weight of her mother's absence press against her chest like a stone. But she didn't collapse. Instead, she began to clean, not out of obligation, but out of reverence. She folded every blanket, dusted every picture frame, polished every surface her mother once touched. She lit a candle, opened the windows, and whispered, "I'll take care of it now, Mama." Over the following weeks, Leah turned her viral post into something permanent. With the remaining GoFundMe money, she created the Carla Foundation, a nonprofit providing emergency financial aid to single mothers battling chronic illness. She started small, just local outreach at first. A few women in need, a few rent payments, groceries, medicine. But word spread quickly. Major media outlets picked up her story. She was invited to speak at schools, conferences, women's shelters. But every time she spoke, she said the same thing. I disowned my mother, and she still chose to love me. If that kind of love exists, I can't waste it. I have to share it. Leah declined the influencer internship. She had nothing against branding or sponsorships, but she knew in her bones that chasing applause would never fulfill her the way Carla's quiet love did. Instead, she enrolled in community college, studying nonprofit management and nursing. She wanted to help women like her mother, not just with words, but with real action. Every month, she returned to Carla's grave with fresh flowers and a new letter. In one, she wrote, I used to think I needed the world to love me, but I had your love all along, and it was more than enough. I hope I make you proud. I love you, Mama. I love you in ways I was too blind to show when it mattered most. Sometimes, people from the community would visit the grave too. Strangers who had read her story. Mothers who whispered thank you prayers. Teens who had lied to their parents and didn't want to make the same mistake. And slowly, Leah became something she never thought possible. Whole. She still had scars. Guilt didn't vanish overnight, but she had purpose. She had memory, and she had a legacy to carry forward. One afternoon, nearly a year later, a teenage girl named Ava reached out through the Carla Foundation. She had a mother battling illness. She felt overwhelmed, embarrassed, angry. Leah met her for coffee. Ava cried for 20 minutes straight, then asked, How do you stop hating someone you're supposed to love? Leah looked her in the eye and said, You stop expecting perfection, and you start remembering everything they gave you that nobody else could. And then she smiled, because maybe that was the answer all along. Not forgetting the pain, but forgiving it. And loving anyway. She disowned her own mother, and almost lost her forever. But in the end, she discovered that the love we run from is sometimes the only love that can save us. And now, with every breath, every choice, she lives to honor the woman who gave her everything,